What's going on, chat? So getting advice from your future self. Now, I want to take a few steps back. We live in a world where we have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have whatever the next social media is. There is no shortage of advice. There is no shortage whatsoever of opinions. We are in abundance of opinions. We are in abundance of people reacting to opinions, reacting to advice from an opinion they got. And then that video is going to be on a compound video of someone reacting to that. So we have a lot of it. We have a lot of advice. We have a lot of advice just in our faces all the time, going towards the same goal. There's going to be a dozen of contradicting advice on the same path. If you just deep it, whatever goals we want, it's not that complicated. Like if we want to get fit, get to the gym. It's not that complicated, but we make it complicated by overwhelming ourselves with the different types of workouts we can do. We have so much advice that we can easily be overwhelmed by the options out there. And now I want to give my advice on the type of advice you are coming across, because why not just add into the opinions clusterfuck, right? So when listening to advice, and this is not just for online, but you can also be overwhelmed with the amount of opinions and advice given to you by people in real life, your family and friends, for example. Right now you are pursuing your dreams, pursuing your goals of whatever that may look like. Maybe that's a creative pursuit, maybe that's making money online. And the opinions you're getting. So these are the people who have never done it or aren't even in the field. These are the advice where it's like, live your life, basically the whole YOLO mindset. When you hear that advice where you can be comfortable and just settle in your 20s, look at who's giving that advice. Because more time, if they're giving you advice, reminiscing on how you should YOLO it in your 20s, then more time, this is similar to someone who peaked in high school and all they can ever think about is the good old days. They're still talking about that period in their life as if it was all they ever had. Like their best years are gone. Like their best years are behind them. Scarcity. Like, oh shit, that's why you should be YOLOing it in your 20s, because this is the best it's ever gonna get. Whereas, what if someone gave advice not coming from that angle, where they still look at their 20s with fond memories, but it's more so of gratitude, like, oh, I'm so glad I put in the work in during my 20s. During the 20s, yeah, when you have the most amount of free time there, and you're just looking back at that point in your life with so much gratitude, like, oh my gosh, the younger me really did put in the work so I can live comfortably with my family right now. That's what you should be looking for advice for, because if you're listening to people who are still scarce and still thinking about the good old days and stuck in the past, then if you listen to their advice, wouldn't you also eventually be stuck in a past like them, like how they are right now? Wouldn't you also be talking about your 20s like it was the best, it was your peak, it was your prime of your life? Or are they looking at it like, wow, I'm so glad I was able to put in the work, the discipline for that time, so I'm able to enjoy the riches and the fruits now. And not only me, my family can enjoy it as well. I don't have to work for a boss trading in my time for money instead of my kids. My kids are actually the one benefiting the most from my choices in my 20s, rather than you reminiscing to your 20s because now you have a belly gut. So that's one side of taking advice. But then there's this other way of getting advice, and this includes time traveling. Say moms. I think what I'm about to tell you deserves 5 likes, because I'm going to tell you basically how to time travel. So if I get 5 likes, I'm going to text my mom a good night. Getting advice from your future self. Fuck the noise. Your future self knows exactly who you want to be and how you can best align to your goals. Your future self knows that. So who better to ask for advice than my future self? Is not going to tell me, it's not going to give the information for me, but it is going to tell me what information I do need to learn. So there's Tick book by Tim Ferriss, The Tools of Titans. It's basically a library of all the people he's encountered in his podcast. Yeah, just the patterns of successful people in different areas, in different industries. And one chapter I was reading was from Shay Carl. Now Shay Carl, he's like one of the OG vloggers. He started off in the early 2010s. He was like the first family vlogger. He was like the first one to do it daily as well. And he was just kind of like the pioneer of this whole YouTube game. One of the pioneers. Him and Tim Ferriss do this visualization practice where they think of themselves as they are 10 years older. An example for me is to channel my 30-something-year-old self. And just thinking, if you're 30, 41 for example, what advice would you give yourself right now? I don't know this. What advice would you give yourself if you were older? That version of me is a lot more immediate than from thinking of a perspective of an 80-year-old. So, for example, when I'm thinking about what my 30-year-old self would tell me, these doubts and fears of starting a YouTube channel or documenting your creative process or putting yourself out online, these doubts do not matter, and no one gives a shit. Like, no one cares in the way that you think they do. This helps so much in everyday life, in all areas of your life. What would I want to tell myself, or what advice would I give myself from a 40-year-old me to a 23-year-old me right now? A lot of it is family. When I'm thinking from that perspective, I'm thinking like, if you aren't cherishing your parents every day at this moment, especially when you're living with them right now, it helps me see the overall picture. When I think from that perspective of the older me, I realize what the importance is right now. So again, what's not important is the doubts and fears I have. And what is important is to cherish my family, to be grateful. Yes, to be grateful, but to what extent? To what extent are you grateful? This present moment, yes, we know that you're never going to get the same moment twice. If I'm looking at this frame right now from 41-year-old version of me, I'm thinking, wow, this is the moment in my life where I haven't had kids yet. I haven't met my wife yet. I was still living with my family, and I was still seeing my parents consistently. You know, when I've got my own family, I won't be seeing my parents as much as I am now. And that's something I'm very, very freaking grateful for, bro. Mate, I'm not even going to get into that, but you see what I mean though? Like, because if I wasn't thinking like this, yeah, and I was thinking from how I used to be thinking, where I was a bit ungrateful, I was a bit tunnel vision, you just get so caught up in the bullshit of life. If I wasn't thinking like this, yeah, I would be thinking the opposite. I would be thinking, I can't believe I haven't moved out of my parents yet. I feel like I'm in a rush. I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like I'm overthinking, just all this self-doubt. Yeah, the best way I could put it is tunnel vision. So when I've just used this framework where I've just stepped out and realized, like, looking at me right now, this present moment, from the perspective of someone older, and that someone older is me, it just makes you realize, like, the bullshits of every day, the jargon of everyday tasks, they don't matter. When you talk to old people, they don't talk about the time where they couldn't be bothered to do some piece of work. They talk about regret as well. So that's another thing you could be asking from your 41-year-old perspective. If you didn't pursue those passions that you really wanted to, how much of the regret will grow at that point? And then perhaps that's maybe where you do get the 30, 40-year-olds looking back at their 20s with regrets and thinking, and maybe that's why it was the best times of their life, because they haven't made the regrets yet. Because again, we're cherishing your parents and the situation right now. And mate, I'm just so lucky. Like, I got all my plants here, I got all my books here. This is the time of my life when I'm still living with all my family. And it's not always going to be like that. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm so grateful for this simple thing like that. Be careful who you're actually getting this advice from, and where are they coming from? Are they coming from a place of gratitude, or are they coming from a place of regret and scarcity? And you can learn from both of them. And second of all, what advice would you receive from you at 30 years old? From you at 41 years old? Thanks for being here, chat. Until next time, love.